Do you all have questions from last week on the invasives that we talked about? Are you a little disappointed about the invasives, that there's so many of them? Yeah, I was like, you should be a little and disappointed. So tonight is native plants for the landscape. We'll try to come up with some suggestions so that you can replace them with. If you've attended all 3 sessions, you get a goodie at the end. And if you've not attended all 3, there's still some stuff for you. I got seed packets, so no one will go home empty-handed. How about that? And I am recording this. I will send the recordings out. I decided you all, because some of you get lots of emails from me, I would just send all 3 recordings out once with everything instead of bombarding you with all these emails. I will just plug it all in one email. It will not be the tomorrow, though. I can assure you of that. All right, some native plants. So we do have to address why we add native plants to the garden. And there's numerous native plants whose characteristics are well suited for use in landscaping. Some are not. So we're going to kind of talk about those that can and can't be used. You know, they're adapted to our local climate and soil conditions. Again, that is changing because we did switch hardiness zones, so our climate is changing a bit. Typically, they require low or no additional fertilizer to thrive. Often require fewer pesticides than non-native landscape plants. If planted in suitable locations, native plants require less water once they are established, which is always a plus. Provide food and shelter for native wildlife and promote native biodiversity and land stewardship. So this is why. Now this is our first one, but before we get started, just take note in the upper right-hand corner, it does say sun-loving herbaceous plant. So in the top right corner, each plant will be labeled as to where it goes, whether sun, shade, or semi, and if it's herbaceous or woody, herbaceous being a perennial, and we will talk about some woodies later on. This first one is butterfly weed. So Asclepias tuberosa. This is a milkweed. Okay, so this is good for the monarchs. Let's see here. What all do you need to know about this one? Oh, there are 12 types of milkweed in Indiana. We'll hit 3 of them. There's a reference in the end that I'll show you. All 12 will be listed there, but we only cover 3 in this. All 3 are hosts for the monarch caterpillars in various life stages and are used as nectar sources. This one, so the butterfly weed, there is another plant that's more of like a tropical butterfly weed. This one's the native. The tropical one they don't like, and it's not as good for them. So you want the native one that's orange. Prefers to be planted in full sun and well-drained soils. If the soil is moderately well-drained, they'll still do okay. They get 1 to 2.5 feet tall, and the plant produces bright orange flowers in late June that you see, and the flowers can last until August. Other insects besides the monarchs do use this. It is slow to emerge in the spring, and transplanting from one place to another is tough due to its deep taproot once it's established. Butterfly weed can be started from seed outdoors, plant in the fall, and allow the seed to be exposed to winter cold. So it has to go through what's called stratification. It has to go through that cold period to really germinate. Deer don't prefer this plant as food, so hopefully they won't damage it. They might browse on it a little bit to see what it is, but otherwise they should leave it alone. Okay. Well, milkweed as a whole, if you're around livestock, I wouldn't plant it because it is poisonous to livestock. So we don't, again, encroaching on our neighbors and stuff. This is common milkweed. We used to have a ton of it out here, and we finally, I think, got it all kind of cut down a little bit. It can tolerate moderately wet to dry soils and can be very tolerant of drought. Lots of pollinators like it. It is a difficult one because it likes to spread. So if you're looking for a more maintained area, this is not the plant to have. It shoots off from the roots and stuff. So don't plant this if you're looking for a more manicured look. It gets between 3 and 5 feet tall with pink blooms from June to August. Space individual plants about 2 feet apart because they also self-seed. If you are planting buy seed, plant in late fall to early spring. That way you hit that stratification, and no more than 1/4 of an inch deep. So these are really shallow seeds that we need. You also can collect your own seeds. You can go, there's YouTube videos from Prairie Moon Nursery and stuff where you can go and see how to collect the seeds and everything and start them from seed if you wish to do that.
So this is the kind that's around the pond.
So yeah, so we have a lot of this in that field, and it does come back. So if you mow it down, it does come back and it branches off. So people have argued with me that that's not milkweed out there. And I'm like, well, that's because it got cut off and it was growing again and it forced it to fork. So if you cut it down, it does grow back kind of weird. And then swamp milkweed. So this is the third one that we're going to talk about tonight. It could be as common name, swamp, marsh, red, and rose. What they call this one. And it likes kind of more wet soils. It thrives in wet soils, but tolerates moderately well drained. So if you're doing a rain garden, this would be a good option for you to soak up some of that water. One nice characteristic of the dusty rose colored blooms are their vanilla carnation-like fragrance. So they have this one has a different odor to it, maybe than some of the others. Blooms are short-lived in summer, lasting for about a month. And during that time, they are food for monarchs, bees, moths, and other butterflies. They get between 2 and 5 feet tall, and you want to space these plants between 1 and 3 feet apart. If seeding, again, we're going to do that in the fall. This one also needs to be stratified. And you can just leave the seeds outside or place them in the refrigerator to achieve that stratification. And deer don't like this one either, so they might browse it a little bit, but they should not damage it. Any questions about these? That's bad. Common milkweed is the worst offender of that. Yeah. Common is definitely the worst one. Okay, New England aster. We've had this out here in our roundabout for a while. It is a sun-loving plant. It does tolerate light shade. So if you have a spot that maybe gets a little shade, you can plant this. It does well in a wide range of soils, except for consistently dry sites. It's also good for a rain garden. So if you're doing that rain garden, this one doesn't mind having wet feet. It does grow from seed, and the plant will flower in the 2nd or 3rd year. So when doing the seeds, it does have to be a mature-ish plant before it will flower. At mature height, it's 3 to 5 feet tall. The flower ranges from shades of purple and pink, depending on the plant genetics. Most of the pollinators like this plant, and it's the larval host of the pearl crescent butterfly. So when we're planting for pollinators, we really need to make sure we hit all stages of life, being the larvae, the eggs, the chrysalises, and then the adults. It has a late blooming habit, so late summer through October, and it serves as an extended visual interest in the garden and provides a stable nectar source when all the other flowers are unavailable because it is blooming in that fall time frame. To identify this from other asters, you're looking for a hairy stem and leaves that clasp the stem in a distinct way, nearly encircling the stem. So most asters don't do that. Yes, Rosa. You can work on them. I mean, they're not, you must have, well, I mean, they do get up to 5 feet, but you should probably also look for some dwarfer varieties. I'm sure there's some on the market that stay shorter. Yeah, you have a dwarf variety of that one. Yeah. Yeah. So it's looking, we call those nativars. If they're not the true one, they're nativars. That you could look at. Yeah. Yeah, they're working on getting a lot of the natives more dwarf because some of them get super tall.
And I always cut mine back till July 1st.
Yeah, just keeping them.
And they are very bad about self-seeding.
Yep, and it probably makes them a little bit bushier when you cut them back up until that point.
Yes. Because
you're forcing all the juice, the energy back down into growing it out and not up. So, yes, you can use New England aster as that. Oh, purple dome is a common low growing variety. So Common or purple dome is the name of it. All right, pink turtle head. It's fun. It's a clumping native perennial in the plantain family. So it's a plantain. And let's see here. What should you know about this one? You can see it has pinkish purplish blooms that have terminal spikes. So it means it only flowers at the tip of the flower. They look kind of like snapdragons or turtle heads. Deep green foliage on lance-shaped leaves provide visual interest in the landscape, and turtle head can be planted in full sun to part shade. So again, if you have some dappled shade or whatever, it can handle it. Likes wet soils, so the deeper portions of rain gardens could be ideal locations for growing this plant. So what areas? Look at this one.
Do we know where we can find that?
Some places sell it. We're going to talk about, I'll pull up the website where you can see the local, there's nurseries that are certified to sell native. So I'll pull that up at the end. Mm-hmm. Peacock. Yeah. Peacock will be here at Pollinator Day. So that's a local nursery that sells native plants. Yep, she does. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jean. No. Oh, I don't know. Not. I don't know who. I know who you're talking about out that direction. I know who you're talking about. No, I don't think they are. But I'll show you all the list. Yeah,
What was the name of the company?
Oh, I have no idea. Jean was out of it about the time I started, I think. Yeah. Yeah, but it's out of ways. Yeah. So this one's good though, because it only grows 2 to 4 feet tall, blooms in July and continues through September. This one might draw in the Baltimore checker spot butterfly and caterpillar, as well as bees and other butterflies and moths. And the hummingbirds may also like this one if you plant it and they're looking for a spot. When you buy this, check the species name. Hybrids will have different species names and they may not provide the same benefits to pollinators. So double check to make sure you're truly getting the Chilone obliqua. Latin, not my best language in the world. Next one is purple coneflower. So echinaceas, there's many echinaceas on the market. That is one plant that's been bred for beauty, so to speak. So there are like iridescent ones on the market. For buying those, they're not going to do any good for pollinators because they've been bred in such a way that they don't have a lot of nectar or pollen in them anymore. They were bred for the petal color and they lost their stuff. So it's easy to grow, it's attractive to pollinators, and its seed heads remain on the plant through winter. So it adds visual interest, but also the birds can eat it. I don't know, I leave mine out. I never cut mine back. I don't do a lot with my landscape, so it does well in most soils, but does not like consistently wet roots. So it does not like wet feet. So it would not be good like in the center of a rain garden. Once established, it can handle drought quite well. Deer don't generally snack on it. 3 to 4 foot tall plant under optimum conditions. Height will decrease in challenging environments. Let's see here. It does self-seed. There are other echinacea varieties. There is a yellow echinacea out there that's a native and a couple others. So, and an orange, yeah. Just it's really what I think they've seen is when that petal color changes, that's what affects the pollen and nectar amount. Let's see here. You can expect this plant to be relatively pest-free, but it does get Astor's yellow, which is pretty common anymore, which is a bacteria transferred by insects and can cause unusual bushy growth, stunting, and yellowing of the leaves. There were too many like U's and Y's close together, and my brain was like, no. All right. So just a fun fact, Plains Indians use the root to treat rattlesnake bites, bee stings, headaches, toothaches, sore throats, and distemper in horses. Coneflowers are still widely used today in pharmaceutical preparations. This is not a thing though that says you should go out and try to use your coneflower for pharmaceutical purposes. It's just a fun fact. Like they used to use it for all these different bites and stings, and apparently distemper in horses.
Well, echinacea is still,
Still sold
promoted and sold as
an herbal remedy.
herbal remedy, yeah.
Yep. And then we have black-eyed Susans, also very common. Thrives easily in disturbed areas, prefers full sun and dry or moderately well-drained soils. This one's going to get between 1 and 3 feet high and blooms June to October. This is an Indiana native, but has naturalized, so it grows without negatively impacting habitat throughout most of North America. Black-eyed Susan is a biennial, so the first year it's just going to have some leaves and stuff. The second year is when it's going to flower and set seed. Leaves are alternate on the stem and can have toothed or smooth margins. Some leaves can have 3 or more lobes. There's black-eyed Susan, there are brown-eyed Susans, and a couple other varieties out there that are native. This is a super hands-off plant requiring little in the way of care with moderate drought tolerance. So it can handle when we have those dry spells in July. The trick to growing black-eyed Susan is to give it full sun and decent soil. Moderate fertility will give you the best flower show, so avoid the edges of lawns where lawn fertilizer will provide excess nitrogen. Questions about this so far? Okay. Stiff goldenrod, lesser known native flowering plant that is suitable for home landscapes and likes full sun to light shade and moderately moist soils. It spreads by rhizomes. Okay. So it's going to spread underground. It can still do seed and stuff, but usually rhizomes are how it's going to spread. Usually found on open woods, glades, and thickets. It features tiny, bright yellow daisy-like flowers and dense, erect, flat-topped terminal clusters at the tip of the plant. It sits above stiff, broad leaves on hairy stems, growing 3 to 5 feet tall. Individual flowers can be up to 1/2 inch in diameter, which is larger than most of the other native goldenrods. Flowers bloom from late summer into early autumn and attract bees and butterflies. This one has relatively few insect or disease problems. It does get leaf rust occasionally, and head clipping weevils have been noted in southern Indiana. So gets a couple things, but not too terribly bad. This plant does benefit from being divided every 2 to 3 years to control its growth. As the interesting note on here, goldenrods are often wrongfully accused of causing hay fever. In reality, hay fever is an allergic reaction to windborne pollen from other plants like ragweed. So just a little side note there.
And there's lots of varieties of goldenrod.
Yes. So this is just one, but there's probably like 14 or so on the list for Indiana that are native. Because we have the same goldenrod and we zigzag, and we planted it. Your conditions are very different than my conditions, and mine blooms in shade because where it's at gets shade from about 1 o'clock on, and it blooms like crazy way earlier than yours does.
Yeah, mine was slow growing.
Yeah. And we can say they're the same plant because I bought them and then we divided the tray up between us. So they're from the exact same place, exact same time, and they just behave very differently. Yep.
What about fireworks?
Which one?
Goldenrod.
Ooh, I don't know about that one. We'll look. We'll look because I'll pull up the sheet before I'll pull it up and I'll show everybody how to read the sheet. Next one, spiderwort. Prefers full sun and tolerates all soils except those that are consistently wet. So don't plant it next to a creek that stays in creek mode all year long.
I have some in my rain garden. And it does just fine.
Yep. But it doesn't say consistently wet in your rain garden.
And it is on the side, not the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does.
Always. At least we can tell you that we've tried some of these plants and how they've kind of done. We have not tried them all, but we've tried some of them. Long blooming 3-petaled flowers are usually violet blue, but sometimes they show tinges of pink. Yellow stamens contrast nicely with the petal color. This one flowers May to July, sometimes lasting longer, with each flowering lasting for a day. So each of these flowers only last for a day.
Well, I like to open their blooms and sometimes.
They close them up. They're like, no, not today. I'll try again tomorrow. Yep. Leaves are iris-like, arching dark green, 1 foot long and 1 inch wide. Is the length on those leaves. This plant gets 2 to 3 feet tall. It forms clumps at maturity. The seeds germinate well when planted in the fall. Again, so it's got to go through that cold stratification for about 120 days. It is native through continental U.S. and Ohio spiderwort is the most widespread of all the natives because it's throughout the whole continental U.S. It is adaptable to sand and clay and other less hospitable sites. Its native presentation commonly found on wooded slopes and moist shade bluff ledges. Bees and flies use spiderwort, so you won't see a lot of butterflies on this one. Let's see, anything. And there are several native spiderworts to Indiana. Blue mist flower. This one is 1 to 2 foot tall at maturity, and it resembles a lovely blue-purple fog when planted in dense stands. The downy purplish disc-like flowers form in clusters of 35 to 70 at the tops of stems in late summer and autumn. And it attracts butterflies, bees, moths, and flies. The leaves are triangular and they're opposite on the stems with large toothed edges, and it prefers wet mesic and dry mesic. So some moisture. It doesn't do full on dry. Okay. And it spreads by rhizome. So this is underground. I have this one at in my ditch, and it does. I get excited. It hasn't like bushed out a lot, but it has started popping up in other places. I'm like, yes, please take over. Please take over. Let's see here. It does require frequent thinning and division to keep it vigorous. So kind of a cool plant. Spotted Joe pieweed. This is another native that there are a ton of cultivars of it or nativars because this one gets pretty tall. So this one is looking about 4 to 6 feet tall. So you might find some dwarf varieties of this one that you can plant that do better in a landscape. Yeah. Let's see here. It blooms July through August, and the clusters get between 12 and 18 inches. The blooms attract dozens of butterfly species, bees, and moths. The flowers give way to attractive seed heads that persist on the plant into winter. Deer are not likely to browse its coarsely serrated, lance-shaped dark green foliage, so they don't like this one. Just don't like the leaf texture, I guess. In the spring and fall, Joe pieweed can be divided and transplanted to other sites. So if you do have this and it's gotten a little much for your site, spring and fall divisions are okay for this one. Gateway is a popular cultivar bred to be more compact, bushier, and shorter, but not by a lot because it gets 4 to 5 feet tall. So I'm not really sure how much more. Wow, we knocked a foot off of it. That's about it. Doesn't have a lot of insect or disease problems. Can get leaf scorch if soils are continuously dry. So that might be a July issue or an August issue, but nothing too terrible. Let's see. Any questions about Joe pieweed? There are some others. Some are more better suited for rain gardens. I think you have it, or do we put it at the fairgrounds? The fairgrounds, we have a rain garden, and we have some Joe pieweed at the fairgrounds. So, all right, Queen of the Prairie. So it's kind of hard to see. It's the pink flower kind of in there. It's in the middle of that. It's tall, Upright clump-forming perennial spreads by rhizomes, making it a great plant for naturalizing moist meadows and clay soils. It does spread and is semi-aggressive in small gardens. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily stay where you plant it. Tiny, fragrant, pale pink flowers bloom at the terminal stems, forming 6 to 9 inch panicles. Soil moisture determines mature height, which could be 6 to 8 feet in best conditions and shorter in drier conditions. It's fragrant. Deer-resistant leaves are bright green with compound palmate arrangements. Let's see here. The species is a bit tricky and slow to germinate or grow to maturity, but once flowering, it is attractive to bees, beetles, and flies, which means if you can find the plant for it, go for the plant and don't try the seed. Okay. Dense blazing star, and there are more than just one dense blazing star. There's all kinds of liatris that are native. There's some other common names are marsh blazing star, gay feather, dense blazing star. There's a couple others, like there's dwarf dense blazing stars. This one thrives in sunny locations with moist to wet soils. This is the most moisture tolerant of liatris species, but it also does well in well-drained garden sites. As a member of the daisy/aster family of plants, it is a clump-forming perennial with 2 to 4 foot tall spikes that are purple, and they bloom from the top down from mid to late summer. And these showy flowers attract pollinators and make good cut or dried flowers. Let's see here. Roots are shallow and fibrous, so they have corms, so a swollen stem base covered in scaled leaves that can produce new colonies, though it usually reproduces by seed. So while this one could reproduce underground, usually this one's seed. Dense blazing star is most eye-catching when planted in mass. It's great for pollinator gardens, rain gardens, and perennial borders. Taller stems may require support. As you can see in the photo, it does get quite tall, so if we get a lot of wind, it may need a little cage or something to help it stand up. Bergamot, Monarda fistulosa, usually called bee balm, wild bergamot, Ossawago tea, or horse mint. It is a member of the mint family, which does mean it spreads. It likes dry soils on prairies, dry rocky woods, glade edges, unplanted fields, and along roads and railroads. It grows 2 to 4 foot tall on square stems. So if you ever question if it's a mint or not, feel the stem. If the stem is square, it's in the mint family. And it does spread readily. It's native to most of North America. It's often cited for its historical medicinal applications among indigenous peoples. Uses include salves for boils and lacerations, and tea infusions for headaches, indigestion, colds, and the flu. Again, don't try this at home. But because it has a tube-like structure, butterflies like it, bees like it, and hummingbirds because of that tube-like flower structure. Blooms July to September. And it is tolerant of black walnut compound. So black walnut has jugulone, and it can tolerate it. So you could plant this near a black walnut and it won't suffer. Deer do not like it. The flowers can be both cut and dried in arrangements. The main disease concern is powdery mildew. Believe me, it survives it. It's fine. It's whatevs. It doesn't. It's there, and it's more of a visual problem than it is a plant health problem.
And even though it spreads, it's really easy to just.
The
roots shallow and.
Yeah. And it really is, again, dependent on where you plant it at, because I have this and I either have 2 different varieties or it's just 2 different locations and they're growing, and some of them get closer to like 5-6 feet tall and some of them stay kind of short. And I'm like, pretty sure you're all the same plant, but I don't know what happened. So foxglove, so penstemons. Could be foxglove beard tongue, Mississippi penstemon, smooth, witch beard tongue, There's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of names for it. It reaches 2 to 3 feet tall at maturity with white to pink flowers. These are tubular flowers that attract long-tongued bees, which would be honeybees, bumblebees, miner bees, mason bees, and hummingbirds, because again, it has that tubular shape. They're called beard's tongue because of their sterile stamen has a tuft of small hair, which you cannot see. But if you get penstemon, you can check it out and see where the small tuft of hair is that looks like a beard. Preferring medium to dry medium soils, it's adaptable to full sun or part shade. This plant is readily grown from seed and it tolerates deer browse and can grow in drought conditions and clay. It doesn't have a lot of insect or disease issues. It can get root rot, but that's if you plant it in the wrong spot because it doesn't like wet feet. So if you plant it in wet areas, it's going to die. Sometimes it gets leaf spots. Sometimes it can also spread aggressively depending on the garden setting. So that's about penstemon. Obedient plant, I will tell you now, is not obedient. It's also called false dragonhead. It's native and it's also a member of the mint family, so it should have that square stem. And because it's a mint, should tell you it's not going to stay where you plant it at. It does prefer moderately well-drained soils. Thrives in full sun, grows 2 to 4 feet tall, has spikes of pink from summer to fall, and has a rhizome root structure, so it spreads underground fairly quickly. Each spike will bloom from bottom to top and produce lots of nectar at the time when pollinators need a boost before winter. The common name of this species has everything to do with its flowers, not its growing behavior. So, to elaborate a little bit, anyone who has played around with this plant's flower spikes will notice that curious fact that the individual flower stems will remain in whichever direction you point them. So if someone were doing this as a cut flower and they come and they cut off this, they can put it in the arrangement and it stays wherever you put it at. That's what it does, except for when you plant it in the ground. And it literally, this is one that you should plant in a plastic pot and then sink the pot in the ground to try to keep the rhizomes from spreading and taking over the garden. Okay, let's see. You can propagate this by seed or by dividing roots and transplanting in the spring. Deer are uninterested in this species and it works well again as a cut flower. Wild geranium. Now this one's a shade loving, so we're switching it up a little bit, going to shade. So this one isn't terrible. I have a couple different ones and my leaves look different. I'm not really sure why that is, but I got them at different times, so that's probably why. It likes shade to part shade, but will tolerate full sun if given sufficient moisture. So as long as it's not baking in the sun, it can tolerate it. This 1 foot tall mounded plant produces light purple showy blooms in the spring, which attract bees, butterflies, moths, and flies. It has a unique way of spreading its seeds. Each seed is packed into a pod, and the pods are attached to a structure that looks like a crane's bill. The bill literally catapults the seeds away from the parent plant. So it has like a little crane on it, and it shoots out the seeds everywhere. When the seed lands, a small tail-like structure attached to its bends and moves in response to changes in humidity, and it helps drive the seed into the soil. Apparently, I've never seen that happen, but I knew about the crane's bill piece, but I've never seen the string. So if you see random things on your seeds, it's probably wild geranium. The foliage may decline and yellow during the hottest part of summer. You can shear back to reshape and refresh the plant. There aren't too many insects or disease issues to worry about. It may get rust and leaf spot. And because it's in shade and it stays moist shade, then you're looking at slugs and snails. If I can get that out today. Yep. Snails and slugs and snails may bother it some. Wild ginger is another woodland plant that makes a great native ground cover in shady areas. It grows in average, medium to wet, well-drained soils. If you're looking for an optimum location, choose a consistently moist, acidic site that gets heavy shade. So this one likes a lot more shade. It's low growing, features 2 dark green downy heart-shaped leaves up to 6 inches wide. Flowers are 1 inch, cup-shaped with a purple/brownish color. Again, you can see it there. It's kind of blah, so it's not going to attract a lot of things because it's not pretty. Upon close inspection, the flowers are beautiful, but they are often hidden under the foliage. So this is not going to be a flower that you're going to readily see. And pollination of this plant is performed by ground crawling insects. In dry summers, wild ginger will wilt or go dormant, but it will be back when conditions are right. It seeds readily and tolerates drought, deer, heavy shade, and erosion. Slugs and snails can be attracted to it, but no serious insect or disease issues. This is not related to the culinary ginger, so don't think you can grow this and then get ginger for your kitchen, because that's not how this works. The roots produce a scent that smells a bit like culinary ginger, though. So if you like the smell in your garden, you can do that. Christmas fern. This one is not in the publication. I'll show you later, but they did want to include it. This is a fern that spreads by rhizomes and has densely scaled, scruffy evergreen. So you can see it's kind of rough around the edges, so to speak. Gets 2 to 3 foot high in a fountain-like habit. The leaves of ferns are known as fronds. Could be fiddleheads when they are unrolling themselves. And they have many leaflets growing directly from the ground in clumps, so no bark is present. They emerge silvery in the spring. They do not have flowers. Instead, the ferns produce reproductive black spores on the underside of some of the leaves, but not all of them. Fertile fronds are narrower at the tip. These plants do best in richly organic, dry to medium, well-drained soils in part shade to full sun. In poorly drained soils, crown rot can affect plants, usually in winter. This fern doesn't spread, but its clumps will increase in size over time. In winter, ferns provide winter coverage for songbirds, who also use the plant's scale-like hairs in nest construction. So they might steal some pieces from this to make their nest. In mass plantings, it makes an excellent soil erosion controller on shaded slopes. And deer and rabbits have little interest in eating the ferns. So again, great if you have a deer problem and you don't want them to eat your landscape. Ostrich fern. This again is not in our publication I'm going to show you, but it is good to put out there so you have some fern options. And it got its name from its appearance like ostrich feathers. It's easy to grow in average, medium to wet soils and prefers part to full shade. Rich soils with consistent moisture are preferred. Soil cannot dry out. It does spread by those underground rhizomes and forms dense colonies of erect crowns and stout erect rhizomes. Prepared like asparagus, fiddleheads are edible, and in early spring, foragers seek them out. Unless you know what you're looking for, don't try this at home. Okay.
That's all we get.
I'm gonna get there. Let's see. No, that's okay. Oh, I lied. I'm not gonna get there. They did not put that in here. I think these get about 2 to 3 feet tall. So, because they get really dense. So, let's see here. Anything else? Deer and rabbits don't like them. So again, like that one. Maidenhair fern, highly recommended for home landscaping. Makes a nice border when paired with wild geranium and is deer resistant. This one's different and is deciduous, so it loses its leaves annually. It gets 1 to 2 feet tall and spreads slowly by creeping rhizomes. It's frequently found on rich wooded slopes, ravine bottoms, and in damp, shady woods. And it has very finely textured, kind of frilly leaves. And let's see here. When it starts to emerge, it comes out kind of like pink. So when all those fiddleheads come out, they have a pink tinge to them. It does go dormant if there's not enough moisture and they enjoy the same environment as hostas do. So maybe you can do a mix. Even though hostas aren't really native, you could still mix them together. Let's see here. Sweet Joe Pie weed. So we're switching it, and this Joe Pie weed likes shade. And you need to know that butterflies like this one, and it's easy to grow. It has a vanilla scented flower. The monarch swallowtails like it. There are not many woodland flowering plants that can mature to heights of 4 to 7 feet tall, but this species does. Has those pale pink to pale purple blooms that occur in the large clusters, and it blooms from July to September. It likes well-drained garden soil in part to full shade. You could pair it with tall bellflower and wild golden glow before, which provides a tall savanna or woodland garden. So if you're wanting pairings, tall bellflower or wild golden are also options to pair with it. Deer resistant, and it makes a wonderful cut flower. So you can see a lot of these the deer don't like. Native Americans used it to cure fevers. Again, don't try that at home unless you know what you're doing. Cardinal flower. This one's actually a shade lover. It grows in rich, medium to wet soils. It needs consistent moisture, even tolerating brief flooding. So maybe like a ditch that would get a lot of water, and then the water would recede. In northern climates, it can tolerate full sun, but appreciates afternoon shade in hot summer climates of the lower Midwest and South. Somewhat short-lived, it's clumping, and it features erect terminal spikes that are also called racemes. The racemes have large cardinal red flowers on unbranched alternate leaf stalks reaching heights of 2 to 3 feet. It does have tubular flowers that bloom in late summer and are tube-lipped with 3 lobes, and the lower lip appears more prominently than the other 2 lobes. What likes this include butterflies and hummingbirds. So not cardinals birds because they don't drink nectar and stuff, but the hummingbirds do like it again because it is that tubular shape. Let's see here. Anything else that you really need to know? Mulching around this plant will help to retain soil moisture. There are no serious insect or disease issues with the plant, although snails and slugs can damage foliage. Again, any of these that are in the shade-loving category are going to get snail and slug issues. The foliage contains alkaloids that are very toxic to humans if ingested. Great blue lobelia. This one typically grows in moist to wet environments along streams, springs, swamps, wooded areas, meadows, forms clumps, and it produces tubular lip-shaped flowers with 3 lobes, and the lower lip appearing more prominent than the other two lobes. So similar to cardinal flower in how that flower structure is. Let's see here. What do you need to know? The stalks are stiff and unbranched, reaching 2 to 3 feet high. Has light green lance-shaped leaves up to 5 inches long with finely toothed margins. The clumps can be divided in the spring, and the plant may self-seed in optimum conditions, forming attractive colonies. So again, you can buy 1 or 2 plants and then give it a couple of years and get mini plants out of it. Is deer and heavy shade tolerant. So again, the deer don't like this one. The slugs and snails may munch on the foliage, but doesn't have any serious insect or disease problems. Questions so far? Okay, moving on. Virginia bluebells. Don't ask me about this. I planted some before and they did not do well for me. They like moist, rich woods and river floodplains. It does form clumping, areas of 1 to 2 foot tall plants. Has a terminal cluster of trumpet-shaped blue flowers up to 1 inch long. These are early spring blooming flowers. This would be something that's getting ready to pop soon. The flowers, buds are pink, and the flower keeps the pink cast before turning blue. So you can kind of see that. Here's kind of that pinkish, and then it turns to that blue color, bluish purple color. Let's see here. By midsummer, foliage dies back and the plant goes dormant. In moisture-rich environments, the plant will reseed and spread, which doesn't have any serious insect or disease issues. Rabbits don't bother Virginia bluebells, and they will grow under black walnuts, unaffected by the jugulone. Okay. Jacob's ladder likes rich, moist woods and stream edges, and this one's a shorty. It's only 12 to 18 inches tall and does produce mounds of light blue bell-shaped flowers that are 3/4 of an inch long. Let's see here. Went too far. Commonly called creeping Jacob's ladder. So again, it might have a different common name. Check the tags, make sure you get the right scientific name on it. Bees and flies use this plant. If you're looking for specific pollinators, that's what like this plant. Calendine poppy is a woodland plant that grows well in zones 4 to 8 with little to no care in rich woodland soils. With some care, it can tolerate drier, sunnier sites, so that means it needs a little bit more moisture and stuff. Let's see here. Blooms in the spring, atop stems reaching 12 to 18 inches tall. So again, another shorty. It has, let's see. Stems contain a bright yellow sap formerly used as a dye by certain Native Americans. So if you break off the stems and you get yellow dye on them, don't be shocked. It's part of the plant. After seeds drop out of the large hairy pods, this plant goes dormant. Seedlings readily emerge and spread in if fresh seed is scattered on the soil surface, and ants aid in seed dispersal. So the ants will help move the seeds around where they need to be at. Bees and flies are attracted to this one. Let's see here. Yes, it could be for this one. Wood poppy or calendine. Yes. Drooping trillium is our next one. So woods in Indiana are rich with native plants, some of which are quite showy, like this one. And so you could be walking and find this one. Please note that it is best not to dig up and remove woodland plants. Instead, buy from reputable nurseries where they propagate their own plants. This flowering perennial blooms creamy white to maroon colored from mid-April to mid-May on robust 16-inch tall plants. It has what's called 3 sessles, so the sessles being the leaves and stuff. So it's all in 3s. This one's all in 3s. It's typically found in rich understubbed woods in calcareous, so high calcium soils. As the flowers often dangle below the leaves, they are easily missed. So it's in that first photo. You can kind of see where the flowers are dipping over and the leaves end up covering them up. Okay. Wild columbine works wonderfully as a garden plant. It tolerates a large range of soil and sun types. It is deer resistant and grows in pine tree areas as well, so it doesn't mind acidic soil. Has a long-lasting bloom time beginning in April. Hummingbirds like the nectar from the drooping red flowers with the yellow-limbed petals. Flowers are the first to provide nectar to the bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. It produces seeds readily, and this plant will spread. So if you've never dealt with wild columbine, it is a pretty easy self-seeder. And they are tiny black pearls that bounce on hard surfaces, aiding in their distribution. So think of a bouncy ball, and they just keep bouncing. If you want more wild columbine, cut off the flower stalks once fruit capsules start to open, which is a sign of seed maturity. Shake over the area where you want to plant more plants. If you don't want more, deadhead them before the seeds mature. This plant does get leaf miners, which causes some foliar damage, but it won't kill the plant. You can remove those leaves and they'll grow new leaves. Some native grasses. So before we move into native grasses, any questions about the herbaceous plants?
We have thought that columbine, the native was that real dark purple, it's not
It's the red.
the red.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say anything about how long it takes it to bloom.
It doesn't. I know you had a lot of issues with the lemon.
I still don't know what color it is. It hasn't bloomed. It's coming on its third year now, and it's still hasn't bloomed.
I think it's you. I think it's just not the right site for it. I think it's like, again, we talk about the plants doing, I think it's just you, but I don't know. Soil. It's right. It might be her. I don't know. It might be. All right. Some native grasses. Almost all ornamental grasses prefer full sun. They are also drought tolerant once established. So don't overwater them. They'll die. Usually you don't have to fertilize them. Trim to 2 to 4 inches anytime the grasses are dormant. With native grasses, though, you could keep them up as winter interest and then cut them down about now, right when they're starting to pop up new green growth. Cool season grasses grow actively when the weather is cool, spring and fall, like turf grass. Warm season grasses grow actively when the weather is hot. So rapid growth in the summer and then enter dormancy as autumn approaches. So we're going to delve into a few of these grasses. Bottle brush grass, named for its bottle brush appearance, is a cool season grass. So it grows when the soil temperatures are cool, so spring and fall. Provides texture and visual interest in shady areas, forming loose upright tufts. The grass blades are medium green and narrow with a rough texture up to 12 inches long. Bottle brush grass flowers are attractive, greenish, and bristly, about 9 to 10 inches long. Rising above summer foliage, hence the common plant name. By late summer, flower heads mature to brown seed heads and remain on the plant into autumn, attracting birds. The seeds will self-sow, but the grass is not aggressive. So unlike other ornamental grasses you might know that keep going and going, this one is not aggressive, but it will self-sow. It does tolerate drought, heavy shade, erosion, dry soil, and air pollution. It is among those who can be planted near black walnut without suffering. So if you have black walnut, here's another great plant for you. Switchgrass is a warm season grass that spreads by rhizomes, growing 3 to 4 feet tall, but sometimes up to 7 feet. So this one's going to grow when the soils are warm in our summers. The clumping form is topped by finely textured pinkish branched flower panicles and retains its stiff vertical shape throughout the growing season. Flower panicles turn beige as seeds mature in the fall, and the plumes persist into winter, providing food for birds. The foliage also changes colors with the season, so it's blue-green in the summer, orange-yellow in the fall, and then turning tan to beige throughout winter dormancy. Switchgrasses is not phased by deer grazing, and the plant tolerates slight salty conditions well. So if you're thinking about near a driveway or a sidewalk, you could plant something like this, and it doesn't mind the winter salts that we put down. Any questions about this one? There are some other dwarf varieties out there too for some of these. Like a little blue stem. It's an iconic warm season prairie grass commonly used in landscaping and habitat restoration projects. It gets 2 to 4 feet tall in upright clumps of slender, flat green leaves that are 1/4 inch wide. Each leaf displays a tinge of blue at the base and purplish bronze. August flowers are produced in 3-inch long racemes. On branch stems, flowers are followed by clusters of fluffy silver white seed heads that persist into winter, adding garden interest atop foliage that turns brown, copper, and crimson after first frost. Skipper caterpillars feed on the foliage, as do grasshoppers, prairie walking sticks, the leaf-minding beetle, thrips, spittler bugs, and leafhoppers. Seeds are eaten by songbirds, so even though it's going to have some insects, it's a sturdy enough plant that it can take some insects hanging out on it. It thrives in moist or droughty soils and is adaptable to most places. It's one of the most widely distributed species of grasses in the United States. Alongside oats grama, little bluestem often dominates short grass prairies. In tall grass prairies, companion grasses include big bluestem, Indian grass, and switchgrass. Seed heads can be removed to control seedling spread, although consecutively harvesting this species for hay will likely cause it to dwindle. So don't use this as a hay producer. It tolerates deer browse, drought, erosion, dry soil, shallow, rocky soils, air pollution, and black walnut presence. So it's a tough one. Indian grass is a warm season perennial, native to the prairies, glades, and open woods. Once one of the dormant species in the Midwestern tallgrass prairies, the species grows 3 to 5 feet. Oh, that's dominant, not dormant, because I can't read tonight either. So it's a dominant species that grows 3 to 5 feet tall with an upright form and blue-green foliage. The foliage turns orange-yellow in the fall and retains color hints into winter. In late summer, stiff vertical flowering stems are topped with feathery light brown flower panicles that are 12 inches long. The panicles take on a darkened to bronze chestnut as they mature in the fall, fading to gray. It can tolerate tough conditions like drought, erosion, rocky soil, black walnut, and air pollution. Any questions so far about these ornamental grasses? Okay.
Is this like sorghum or?
It would be related to sorghum. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. See, you catch on these Latin names. Mm-hmm. It is a relative. Prairie dropseed is a delicate grass that grows 1.5 to 2 feet tall, in like a hump or a ridge. So it's not exactly clumping; it kind of falls out everywhere. The autumn foliage is often orange and fades to copper. With fine foliage, prairie dropseed might be the most elegant and refined of the prairie grasses. It's a slow grower that does not readily self-seed and is hardy to zone 4. Serviceberry. So we're switching again and we're going to native shrubs and small trees. This is a deciduous tree, so it's going to lose its leaves each fall, and it grows 15 to 25 feet tall. And it has kind of a narrow, rounded form. In the wild, the species can reach heights of 40 feet. We're not going to be in the wild. We're going to be in your landscape. It has a multi-stemmed form consisting of trunk 6 inches in diameter. If roots sucker, so shoots are springing up from the root of the plant, are not removed, it will be more shrub-like. Spring brings white, fragrant 5-petaled flowers, followed by finely toothed leaves with hairy undersides. Young bark is smooth with vertical splits and furrows as the trees age. Red-purple berries resemble the appearance of blueberries. They ripen in the summer and are a food source for songbirds, including cedar waxwings. The bees, beetles, and flies are attracted to this plant, and it tolerates clay soil and air pollution, both of which we have. Insects that might be considered pests of this include leaf miners, the pear sawfly, spider mites, aphids, peach borer, and scales. Again, all treatable though. It is susceptible to cedar apple rust, some leaf spots, fruit rot, fire blight, powdery mildew, and witch's broom. again, most of those things can be dealt with if it does get it. Witch hazel. This one's not included in the publication I'm going to show you, but it was included for winter interest. This is a fall blooming deciduous shrub or small tree that is attractive to birds and tolerates deer, erosion, and clay soils. It's native to North American woodlands, forest margins, and stream banks. Typically grows 15 to 20 feet tall and wide in cultivated settings, but can reach 30 feet in native habitat. Clusters of fragrant, bright green yellow flowers hug the stem from October to December, usually after a leaf drop. Flowers each have 4 crinkly ribbon-shaped petals, and in winter, fertilized flowers will form greenish seed capsules that become woody and brown with age. Each capsule splits open in the next fall, exploding 1 to 2 black seeds up to 30 feet away. So it gets a lot of oomph behind it. And the leaves turn yellow in the fall. So, any questions about this one? Yes, Carrie. Yes, I have one that I'm not sure is still alive, but yes. I got it in Kentucky at a place, which we'll pull up here in a minute. I will show you. Okay, smooth hydrangea. Also not in the publication that I'm going to show you at the end, but also a good plant to have in here. This could also be called wild hydrangea. It's drought intolerant, so can be found in moist or rocky woodland slopes, ravines, stream banks, and bluffs. So it likes to be where it's a little moist. Has gray-brown stems that support 2 to 6 inch broad, egg-shaped, rounded, sharply toothed green leaves that turn yellow in the fall. Has tiny white fertile flowers that bloom from May through July. And let's see here. Blooms form on the current year's new woody full growth. To encourage this new growth and increase flowering, you should prune smooth hydrangea to near ground level in late winter. Flowers give way to some seed capsules that split open beginning in October. Several cultivars have sterile flowers that form ball-shaped blooms, and others have been bred for pink flowers. Unlike other hydrangeas, smooth hydrangea flower color is not altered by soil pH changes. So where we can change and get blue or pink by changing the acidity of the soil, that does not affect smooth hydrangea. Buttonbush, native to the lower 48 states, excluding the Pacific Northwest and most of the lower 48, minus the Pacific Northwest and some western states. It's a deciduous relative in the coffee family. It naturally grows in USDA zones 4 through 9 and requires full sun to partial shade and medium to wet soils, tolerating temporary flooding and standing water. In the wild, it is found in thickets, low woods, swamps, and stream margins, making it ideal as a rain garden or wetland restoration specimen. It has tiny flowers, as you can see. Actually, I had a friend's kid refer to this and look at it and go, huh, looks like the COVID virus. I was like, now I can't unsee that. And it does look kind of like the COVID virus. So those flowers are tubular, and it is a early to mid-summer flower, attracting hummingbirds, butterflies, flies, and wasps. The long projecting styles that develop the pollen tube for the reproduction give the flowers a pincushion-like appearance. Maturing into hard, rounded fruits filled with nutlets, these fruiting heads persist through winter. Buttonbush leaves emerge in late spring. They're about 6 inches long with an oval shape and glossy bright green leaves. If you're looking for some of these, we do give these away at Pollinator Day. I have a whole lot at my house that, I've accumulated, and they do really well. Well, it's really interesting. So Angel see my backyard, and it's pretty flat, and it's about all the same. Like I would define it as all the same minus a tree that I had that died. And I planted a bunch by the tree that died, like in a row. They were getting full sun. I have one on the other side of my property. It's growing, but not like the other ones that have taken off and are like as tall as I am. and it just kind of hangs out. So I don't know why, but even with it, I only have 3/4 of an acre. So even in my little 3/4 of an acre, I have tons of different growing zones for some reason. I don't know.
Some people try to trim those into a small tree route.
Yeah, I don't know that they would do very well.
Yeah. I'm not sure either. I'm not-
They look better as a bush. Now gray dogwood's on here. We do give away gray dogwood. And it's a deciduous shrub found naturally in moist or rocky soils along streams, ponds, wet meadows, glades, prairies, you name it, it kind of can grow there. It's 10 to 15 feet tall and it produces white flowers on red terminal stems in the late spring. So bees like it. The summer azure butterfly uses this plant as its host, as well as New Jersey tea. The foliage emerges gray-green and turns dusky purple-red in the fall, produces small white berries after flowering. This one, I think, is kind of aggressive because I have one of these and it starts shooting up suckers everywhere. So this, I think, is more of a buyer beware. It's a great plant, but just a buyer beware that it might start to do things that you don't want it to do. Winterberry. So this is the native holly bush. We're talking about hollies. This is the native. This is in the Ilex family. So it could also be called winterberry holly, not just winterberry. It's a native deciduous holly, so it's going to lose its leaves in the winter. It has bright red berries that remain on the plant into winter. Beyond adding landscape color and interest, the berries feed winter birds when other food can be scarce. It thrives near lakes, ponds, or marsh edges and in swamps, preferring full sun to part shade and mesic to wet soils. Developing yellow leaves in the high pH or neutral soils. It prefers full sun to part shade. Is great, in several areas. Typically reaching heights of 6 to 10 feet with rounded habit. Winterberry spreads slowing by root suckering. So watch out for root suckering on this one. Let's see. What else do you need to know about this? Has inconspicuous green-white flowers that appear in the leaf axils in late spring and produce a crop of 1/4 inch bright red, showy berries in late summer to fall, persisting through the winter and early spring. Let's see here. 9 bark. Next one. I have this one too. Yep, you have one. You have the native one.
I have two.
Do you have the native?
I have native and the burgundy one right there.
Yep. So this one has a native bark. The native one is green. This is the native bark. This wine colored is a native bark. I know the one I have has a problem because I have 2 leaves on it that consistently every year can't decide what they are, and they split down the middle, and half is wine colored and half is green. I don't know why. And I also have the native one. I don't see much difference between the 2 of them. So
I think the native one is prettier.
you like the green versus the wine colored? I love the wine colored. I love my wine colored. Oh, he needs in. Yeah, it's all good. So this native shrub is in the rose family and it reaches heights of 5 to 9 feet and almost as wide. Older plants may be pruned to the ground in winter to maintain a smaller appearance. It does have exfoliating bark, so that bark kind of peels off the stem a little bit, gives it a little bit of a different look compared to other shrubs and stuff. While the bark is hidden during the growing season, it does provide that visual interest. Has small pink or white 5-petaled flowers in June. The plant goes on to develop clusters of reddish inflated seed capsules. Spring foliage is dull green, made of rounded leaves. Let's see. It provides an excellent cover for birds with numerous arching stems. 9 bark is susceptible to fire blight and leaf spot, but no serious insect or disease issues can be expected. Works well as a shrub border mass, hedge screen, or for erosion control on banks. Single specimens do nicely in native plant gardens, even in harsh conditions. So I think if I remember correctly, like the native art one is like the Diablo series. Yeah, Diablo cultivar. So
Pretty quick.
pretty quick. I mean, I've had mine for less than 10 years and it's taller than I am. And that's on my wine colored one. My native one hasn't done as well, but it's in an area that I don't maintain, so it's had to compete a lot.
Trim mine a lot either. I like that gray.
Yeah, I don't trim mine.
Start trimming them. They don't look like.
Yeah, I don't trim mine at all. I would be wary of cutting it to the ground, like this says. Like I just don't feel confident in that.
We got a yellow 9-bar that it's planted at the falls, and we were told that it was a native.
The only 9 bars that's native is green, and then the native bars, unless they found a yellow native bar, I don't think it's native. Sure, then yeah, he got it. Dave got it. He's just a little late to the game.
Love it.
Yeah. I don't.
Well, that's all he really sold was natives, but who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while.
Condominium in Jeffersonville and Folkestone. Does he? Okay.
See there, we just had to get the name. It just took Dave a little while to get to the party. That's okay. All right, the next native shrub or small tree is fragrant sumac. This is not poison sumac or anything like it. Sumacs are native. They're really important to pollinators. Usually this is mistaken, not the fragrant one, but some of the other sumacs for, I'm gonna skip out on the invasive that smells like peanut butter. Thank you. Tree of heaven. Yeah. Just don't hang out with her when checking out the sumacs because she will take whatever like random capsules are on there and like pop them and go, I wonder what's in here. And then you get smoked with whatever thing is in there that we have yet to determine if it caused any brain damage or not.
Could have. Maybe that's what I'm talking about.
That's it. So this is a dense, rambling, low-growing deciduous shrub that spreads by root suckers, and it forms thickets in the wild. So do the other sumacs. They grow kind of crazy. Typically 4 feet tall and 10 feet wide. Produces medium green trifoliate leaves that change from orange, red, and purple in the autumn. And it says resembling those of poison ivy, but it's not poison ivy. Fragrant sumac is, however, not poisonous in any way. When bruised, the leaves and twigs are aromatic, and tiny yellow female flowers bloom on the twig tips in early spring prior to foliage emerging. Then they have way to small clusters of hairy red berries in late summer, feeding wildlife through the winter. The female flowers on fragrant sumac also produce what's called catkins, which are the male flowers in late summer that persist into winter, and they bloom the next spring. So, any questions about this one? Okay. Pawpaw. Next one. Indiana banana. Sometimes you might know it as. This is the last native on our list. It is a native understory tree or large shrub that typically grows 15 to 20 feet tall. Could reach 30 feet. It occurs in the low bottom woods on wooded slopes, ravines, and along streams. And it can spread by root suckers to form colonies. Leaves are 6 to 12 inches long with medium green color elliptical shapes. In late fall, the leaves turn bright yellow. It does get a cup-shaped purple flower that appears in spring and when fertilized produces the edible oblong yellow and green fruit that you see on the screen that when mature turns brown in the autumn. If you get a chance to get them, that's the problem because other wildlife will get them first. The flavor and fleshy consistency of the sweet roots is reminiscent of banana. They are eaten raw or used in desserts, although they can produce nausea in some people. So buyer beware if you're doing pawpaws. Wildlife such as raccoons, squirrels, and possums often beat humans to the fruit harvest. Can grow in a shrub border or woodland margin, especially along ponds. So I actually have a couple of pawpaws that I bought like as starters. And one of them, not by me, was mowed down by someone that was trying to help me, and it did come back. Like these have taken a beating. I think they finally said, you know what, lady, this is too much. We're done. At least one of them has, but the other one I think is still, so they are pretty hardy. They can take a bit of a beating, but I think our winters have been too much for them with like the extremes, and they're like, we're exposed out here because they're not in the understory, and they're like, we're done. That's our last plant, but they did want to add in kind of transforming a landscape. So these are photos from the Monroe County Courthouse. And you can see that there's burning bush, winter creeper, and yews in this. And this was in 2011. So they started this a while ago. And individuals, agencies, and organizations, including Indiana Native Plant Society, work to transform this landscape into all natives. So you can see then they cleared everything out, and they prepared a mulch bed. And then the volunteers started planting native shrubs and herbaceous perennials. So they kind of spaced them out and had a whole scheme going there. And then this is just more of it. So the Purdue Extension Master Gardeners and DNR Master Naturalists helped to establish the natives and prepare the bed. It includes informational signage helping viewers to identify native plants and spread the word about their importance.
No children were hurt during those.
Yeah, no children were hurt.
Look, I was back down.
Yeah, I don't think his arms are quite long enough for those. Yeah. No, you're good. So this is what it looks like now. So the birds come and everything. Okay. I'll pull up this publication for you. This is publication POL-6-W. I will pull it up online in just a minute and show you, as well as the Native Plant Society and the directory for buying native plants. So I will show that. There are the resources. I will send you all of these things. And as always, read and follow all pesticide labels carefully. It is the law. There's that. Let me stop share this and let me pull up my internet. What kinds of questions do you have right now? I've bored you, like anything. Okay, let me, I gotta get to my Zoom now. So this is that publication POL-6-W. Let me blow this up. Let me, come on now. Anyway, so this one's kind of cool. And you can look at it online. You can print it if you want. It gives the common name, the Latin name, and the growing conditions. So sun, moisture, height, flower color, bloom time, all that. And then which pollinators. So this purplish column here talks about which pollinators it attracts and if there's any special notes. So like the pearl crescent hosts, there's several of them that are pearl crescent hosts and monarchs. Let's see here. If I'm able to blow it up, I can show you those. So you can see it list in case you're unfamiliar with the scientific name, you can at least find it. Which one did you ask me about? You asked me about one of them. And I said, let me pull this up. Oh yeah, there it works. There's Coreopsis. There's a couple echinaceas on here. So there's like 3.5 sheets of wildflowers that you can do. Loose strife is listed on here. Good luck trying to find some loose strifes though. See, we just keep on going. There's yellow coneflower and everything. So just remember, like on these coneflowers, not all coneflowers are echinacea. So yellow coneflowers is something different. Orange coneflower is a rudbeckia, so it's like a black-eyed Susan. Oh, I just saw this one that's called lizard's tail. Now I kind of want lizard's tail. Like I want rattlesnake master.
You say we have some fox sausages.
I
Did
know.
yours do well?
Yeah, my sedges do well. Okay, let's see, Dave. So now it's got trees and shrubs, which there's not a lot, but there's actually more native trees than what's on this list. It's just they must not be good pollinator plants, so they're not on here. Devil's walking sticks on here. Just watch out for that one because that one's got tons of spines on it. So don't plant it where you might fall on it. Yeah. I don't see the one you're talking about, Dave.
What is goldenrod?
Oh, it's a goldenrod. I went too far. That's why. Sorry. I'll go back up here. So yeah, there's spiderworts, goldenrods. So you can see there's a whole list of the solidagos. There's like a blue stem goldenrod, the zigzag, the early, gray, Ohio, riddler, stiff, wrinkled, showy. Yeah, so no, none of that one. Yeah, Heather.
Was there maybe like a publication that talks about common hearings that you use?
So that's where this site comes into play. I love how my computer's like, oh, now that you searched that one, here's the next site that you're going to go to today. So Indiana Native Plant Society has a website. And you can pick native plant palettes. And you can scroll down and you can, like, if it's a woodland palette, you can click woodland palette and it's going to say, here are some flowers. Now it doesn't have pictures with it, like you'd have to keep clicking, and so you can't exactly like move them together and stuff, but it does give you that. Gives you the grasses, the ferns, shrubs, and vines. Now with this website though, there is also, if you go under landscaping, you can do Indiana Native Plant Finder or the Buy Natives directory. So you want to buy natives. You can go here and it has this map. So the map has stickers of green is retail sales, yellows are retail sellers and limited sale dates. Red markers are wholesale only and blue markers are landscape designers. So this is, and I tried, there's links broken on here because it is not printer friendly. I had to make my own printer-ish friendly version today by taking out all the logos. But you can go through, you can either use the interactive map or you can scroll through and find like Ancient Roots Nursery. They're over in Poseyville. So you can check out their website and stuff, see what they have. Around here, we have Peacock Valley, which is in New Albany. In Kentucky, it is Dropseed Nursery. And even though she's in Kentucky, she is listed here, or was.
She's cool.
Yeah.
What was that?
Dropseed.
Yeah.
Yep, it's Margaret Shea.
Yeah.
So Margaret kind of has limited dates because she only opens like in the spring and then is only open for so many weekends and then closes down in the summer and then opens up in the fall. But she's got like a website that you can check out. They all have websites for the most part that you can look at and see what's in stock. Or if you have questions, you can email them and say, hey, I'm looking at this. Idlewild does, and there's yeah.
Something like,
It's way south.
no, what's it, body?
Yeah. But that's the ironweed is where we partnered, where the zoo partnered with to get the native plants out here for this pollinator patch out front. Cause that's who they paired with. I don't know if Margaret just didn't have like the palette they were looking for or whatever, but they partnered with ironweed.
The cool thing about Dropseed though is you can buy plants or plugs. So if you're looking to do a big area and you don't have a ton of money to go with plugs, that's what we bought for our rain garden at the 4-H fairgrounds. And what we did that in 18. So
Yeah.
we're like, 6 years removed and that thing is.
By year 3, it was fine.
But you should.
And the plugs are, yeah, she does plugs too. Yeah. But plugs are always cheaper. So as long as you don't mind maintaining it for a little while and working on your weed control, plugs are usually about $3 a plant versus $10 for a gallon pot. So you could get 3 for the price of 1. And if you're working with people, like we buy flats together and then we divide them amongst us, like when we're doing our own. So if you have a couple of friends, then you can really split the cost and buy a whole flat. Yes, Rosa.
Didn't she give us a discount on like a flat?
I think so. I don't
feel
know.
like we got like a discount on a flat. So yeah, if you have a
Mhm.
friend, you take a friend and fill up a whole flat.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of like a good thing for the.
So we would be looking at shrubs at that point. So if we bounce back, right. That's here in New Albany.
This one's 390 Sandal Lane.
Yeah, you gotta call her and stuff. Go to her website. She's coming to Pollinator Day. She'll be our only plant vendor, FYI. So you can buy plants. She's even coming early because the Master Gardeners bombarded her last year. I'm trying to figure out how to say that nicely, and she couldn't handle setup and everything else. So she's coming early. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think she got small as she was stepping out of her vehicle.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So you could look at like lead plant, Rosa, because lead plant gets 1 to 3 feet tall. So that's one, but it wouldn't stay evergreen. So just remember the natives aren't evergreens. So in replacing boxwoods where boxwoods stay green, these are not going to stay green. We don't have a ton of natives that are actually true evergreens. Let's see here. You could try that sumac because you could keep the sumac trimmed at a certain, like almost like a hedge. The fragrant sumac.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, you can trim that.
What really black chokeberry
Uh-huh.
and seedling across the farm.
Farmers market, yeah. Mm-hmm. You could also do New Jersey teas and uh-huh. They just didn't do well. Yeah. You could also do the shrubby chinkafol. That's always a fun plant. Chinkafol. Shrubby chinkafol. It's 2 to 4 foot. Yeah, hold on.
2 to 4, yeah, 'cause I was thinking winterberry, but they get too.
No.
big.
Let's see if I can do this way. Here, I'll show you.
Winterberry's nice, yeah, yeah.
See, and my computer, even though it's like, here, this is what you're going for. Shrubby chinkafol. So again, another one that you could probably shape a little bit to get that, but if you shape it too much, then you won't get flowers. But it stays kind of small. Okay, what other questions do you all have? Well, before you leave, well, you can think of questions. Angel's going to pass out. I did an end of class survey. If you need pins, I'll go next door and get pins. And then if you made it to all 3 classes, we do have a gift for you. You can either have a boot scraper to help remove seeds from your shoes so you don't track them everywhere, or you have the option of a 1-gallon sprayer you can use to spray herbicides to control those invasives. This is all courtesy of the Floyd County Soil and Water Conservation District. You're welcome. Thank you. And then I also have some seed packets that you can have. There's not, well, we make it already. You're good. So these come from Bayer. So Bayer Chemicals is working on biodiversity and stuff and encouraging pollinator planting. So these include partridge pea, plains coreopsis, black-eyed Susan, butterfly weed, landscape coreopsis, purple prairie clover, purple coneflower, Maximilian sunflower, prairie blazing star, wild bergamot, foxglove beard tongue, gray-headed coneflower, ridge goldenrod, and New England aster. So it's always important too when you're looking at those mixed seed packets to see if you can figure out which plants are in there. so you don't accidentally plant something that you don't want. But again, these are here too. Any questions? Carrie, what's your question?
Just general question. So I went to Bayside Market and looked just at the pesticide section, and it's very different. Even it's hard to go, which is not very big, it drops down.
Right.
I went to fix so that when we cut down honeysuckle, I can paint it on the stop.
Did I print this for, did I print a paper, give you all paper? Yeah, the calendar?
No,
Okay, I will add that to the email.
I actually have some printed cards on cut stump herbicide. Yes. And exactly to do what you're talking about, color the tops of them. Is that what you're wanting to do after you cut them off? Do you have a little steel chainsaw? I do. And then it comes back. Well, that's a reference to this past Saturday. So for those of you who did come out and help us at our weed wrangle, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We had a tremendous number of folks show up on a very cold, sometimes snowy day. And we made a significant difference in cutting all of this bramble back that was like a huge corner along the trail in the park. And the gentleman that came out to help us had a mini steel chainsaw. That was what my reference to. That's why I asked.
So you also had a helmet.
Want to see now? Oh my gosh, the blade was only about that long, and the whole rest of it, like the whole chainsaw is that big. And he was able to make light work of just going through and cutting that stuff. I mean, we had to get it all out, but so yes, there are cards, and in fact, if you'll email me, I bet I have an electronic version of it, or why don't I send it to Gina and she can send it out to everybody. But it basically explains the different things that you can use, but basically getting almost like a bingo dauber, a refillable dauber that you can put if you're trying to actually put herbicide in it. And then, you know, put some dye in it so that when you do it, you can see what you've done. And this man right here has a plan for a dauber that's like this big, so that it's industrial size. If you don't want to, you're sitting having like a dauber in on it, did it or did it? Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
So,
It's just an all day dauber.
yeah. Yes, it's all day. You don't have to refill it. If you're going out, you can, well, the thing is like the song in PVC pipe, but good points. You fill it up and you're not going back to the.
Yeah. There is no bathroom break there.
Yeah.
You are, that's right. So the SIGA website, I'll send you the link again. It's the state of Indiana. They have a kind of invasive species control calendar, and it's color coded. So Carrie, which plant again were you going for? Honeysuckle. So Asian bush honeysuckle does better. Like you can do either a foliar spray, and it tells you when to do the foliar spray, and it's with glyphosate, but you could also do a little bit of the cut stump treatment because you can see these kind of overlap a little bit. So it tells you when to do it. If it's Japanese honeysuckle, then you would do a foliar spray October through March. So, and it tells you in the bottom, so it's color coded. So orange is foliar spray with 3% glyphosate and a 1/4% non-ionic surfactant. I know that's a bunch of gibberish, so you have to tell them.
Once you get used to it, it's like the Bible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You use it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a double-sided, so there's more obviously plant on the back. So there's the herbaceous. So if you're doing crown vetch, that's a foliar spray, garlic mustard. And again, they're all color coded with the different treatments. So like we didn't even talk about princess tree, and it resprouts from stump. And so it gives three different options for it alone. So you have a foliar, you have a basil bark, and you have a cut stump.
Kill it.
Kill it. Try any means possible to kill it. But any other questions for tonight, Dave?
Like 5 wild geranium plants.
Uh-huh.
Different colors.
Mm-hmm.
How do I tell by the line?
It's usually by the purplish, that light purple color is what that wild one is, what the true wild one is.
Like, but
Mhm.
I have one of those.
Mhm.
I picked up at Margaret's.
Yep.
And, it's purple.
Yep, it's the purple. But there are some crane spills that they sell that are white, because I remember selling white crane spills at some point. So check the scientific name, because that's the problem with the plant community. We give all these other names out to things, and so other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, seeing none, you are free if you've been to all three classes to grab yourself a thing. If you've not been to all three, we do have seeds. Feel free to take seeds. I will get you videos out by the end of the week.
And I'll get that card and send it to you tomorrow.
Yep.
And it'll be distributed.